Hey everyone, and a very warm welcome to The English Effect. I am your host and teacher, and I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. In this explainer, we're going to build up your advanced medical English vocabulary by exploring the fascinating and honestly somewhat intense biology of the hantavirus. Learning English through real-world medical science is just one of the absolute best ways to master complex terminology. By the end of our time together, you're going to have 10 vital new words in your vocabulary toolkit, complete with a solid understanding of exactly how they're used in a professional context.
Here is our roadmap for today's lesson. Welcome to Hantavirus, the Four Corners Mystery, step-by-step viral transmission, pathogenesis and symptoms, treatment and prevention, and finally, our lesson summary and practice. All right, let's jump right in.
Welcome to Hantavirus and the Four Corners Mystery. We're actually going to travel back in time a bit to see how this specific strain of virus first caught the medical world's attention.
So, picture this. It's the spring of 1993. Suddenly, a totally unexplained, really severe respiratory illness pops up in the Four Corners region of the American Southwest. Young, healthy people were just rapidly falling ill. Naturally, medical detectives rushed to investigate. And what did they find? A completely unknown viral strain, which they dubbed the sin nombre virus. And the craziest part, they traced this deadly illness back to a super common, tiny little animal, the deer mouse. And you know, this connection right here between an animal and a human disease brings us perfectly to our very first vocabulary word.
And that first key term is zoonotic. Let's sound that out together carefully. Zoonotic. Zoonotic. Now, the definition is relating to a disease that can be transmitted from animals to people. Let's look at our sample sentence. Hantavirus is a zoonotic disease because humans catch it from infected mice. Basically, whenever a virus jumps from an animal species straight into the human population, medical professionals will refer to that virus as zoonotic. Okay, moving on to our second word, reservoir, pronounced reservoir. Reservoir. In a medical context, the definition is an animal or environment in which an infectious pathogen naturally lives and reproduces. Our sample sentence reads, the deer mouse serves as the primary reservoir for the sin number strain. Now, here's the really interesting part. The mice, these reservoirs, they don't actually get sick themselves. No, the virus has co-evolved with them, so it just lives peacefully inside the rodent without doing any harm to it at all. Step-by-step viral transmission. So, you might be wondering, if the mice aren't sick, how on earth does the virus get from these tiny reservoirs into us? Let's break down that transmission. This is a great breakdown of the primary modes of transmission. Notice how the virus mostly just cycles between the rodents. Human-to-human transmission is incredibly rare. We are actually just accidental, unintentional hosts. The real danger comes from human contact with rodent environments, specifically interacting with spaces where infected mice have, well, left behind urine, feces, or saliva. Which leads us to a highly important scientific term, aerosolized. Let's pronounce it. Aerosolized. Aerosolized. The definition is converted into a fine spray or mist of particles suspended in the air. For our sample sentence, the virus is aerosolized when dried rodent droppings are disturbed by sweeping. Think about it like this. Imagine you're cleaning out an old, dusty cabin. If you grab a dry broom to sweep up mouse droppings, you're actually breaking apart those viral particles, sending them floating up into the air like an invisible mist. And what happens once those particles are floating in the air? That's word number 4. Inhalation, pronounced inhalation. Inhalation. The definition is nice and simple. The action of breathing in air, smoke, or other substances. Our sample sentence is, human inhalation of these microscopic infected particles is the main cause of the disease. This is the direct cause and effect right here. The particles are aerosolized into the air, and then inhalation draws them deep down into the human lungs. Let's put that all together to see the complete transmission cycle. Step 1, infected rodents shed the virus in their bodily excretions. Step 2, that excrement dries out over time, and thanks to human activity like sweeping, it becomes aerosolized. Step 3, human inhalation of these microscopic particles occurs, introducing the virus straight into our respiratory system. Makes perfect sense, right? All right, pathogenesis and symptoms. Now that we know exactly how the virus enters the body, we need to look at the medical English used to describe what happens next. Our fifth word is a fantastic high-level medical term, pathogenesis. Listen closely. Pathogenesis. Pathogenesis. The definition is the biological mechanism that leads to a diseased state. It's basically the story of how a disease develops. Our sample sentence: understanding the pathogenesis helps doctors know exactly how the virus attacks the body. This is a great word to have in your toolkit. You can use it when talking about the development of literally any disease, from a basic common cold to something as severe as hantavirus. So looking at the actual pathogenesis of the hantavirus. Once inhaled, the virus binds to specific receptors right on the surface of our cells. It sneaks into the cell inside these tiny vesicles, and then it starts to replicate. But here's the wild part. The virus itself doesn't actually destroy our cells directly. Instead, it tricks the human immune system into a massive overreaction. This intense overreaction causes our blood vessels to become highly permeable, which basically means they start to leak. To understand exactly what is leaking, we need word number 6, endothelial. Pronounced endothelial. Endothelial. The definition: relating to the thin layer of cells that line the inside of blood vessels. Our sample sentence reads, the virus targets the endothelial cells, causing massive vascular leaks. Because these really fragile endothelial cells are compromised, blood plasma literally starts escaping from the blood vessels and flooding out into the surrounding tissues. Now, this endothelial leakage causes 2 completely different catastrophic syndromes, totally depending on where you live in the world. On the left, we have HPS, or Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. This is found in the New World, the Americas. It severely attacks the lungs and is highly lethal, with fatality rates hitting up to 40%. On the right, we have HFRS, or hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome. Found in the Old World, like Europe and Asia, this syndrome goes after the kidneys, and its lethality really varies depending on the specific strain. Let's dig into the symptoms of the New World strain, HPS. This brings us to word number 7, edema, pronounced edema, edema. Definition: swelling caused by excess fluid trapped in the body's tissues. Our sample sentence: in HPS, plasma floods the alveoli, resulting in severe pulmonary edema. The word pulmonary just means related to the lungs. So pulmonary edema means the patient's lungs are quite literally filling up with that leaked fluid, leading to massive respiratory failure. Now, switching gears to the Old World strain, HFRS. We'll use word number 8 for this one, hemorrhagic, pronounced hemorrhagic. Hemorrhagic. The definition is accompanied by or produced by bleeding. The sample sentence reads, the Old World strains cause a hemorrhagic fever paired with kidney injury. In this syndrome, those vascular leaks cause dangerous internal bleeding, heavily impacting the renal system, which is your kidneys. Jumping back to that lung-focused syndrome, HPS, patients there experience our 9th word, dyspnea, pronounced dyspnea. Dyspnea. Definition: difficult or labored breathing. Let's look at the sample sentence. As fluid builds up in the lungs, patients experience sudden, severe dyspnea. This is the direct physical consequence of that pulmonary edema we were just talking about. A patient with severe dyspnea is desperately struggling for air. Treatment and prevention. Knowing how fast and incredibly severe this pathogenesis is, how do healthcare professionals even begin to manage and treat this illness? Well, as of right now, there is no widely approved specific antiviral cure for hantavirus. Care is primarily supportive, and it usually takes place right in an intensive care unit. This means oxygen therapy, super careful fluid management so doctors don't accidentally add even more fluid to the lungs, and sometimes they use a highly advanced machine called ECMO. ECMO temporarily takes over the work of the heart and lungs just to give the patient's body a fighting chance to rest. It is a really intense lifeline for a very serious disease. Because treatment is so incredibly difficult, prevention is absolutely vital. And this introduces our final word, number 10, prophylactic. Let's say it together. Prophylactic. Prophylactic. Definition: a medicine or course of action used to prevent disease. Sample sentence: wearing protective gear while cleaning acts as a prophylactic measure against infection. Simply put, when you take steps to stop a disease before it even has a chance to happen, you're taking prophylactic measures. So the key takeaway here is implementing these real-world prophylactic steps. First up, control local rodent populations around human housing. Second, completely seal any cracks or entry points in your home. Third, and I cannot stress this enough, avoid dry sweeping in any dusty infested areas so you don't aerosolize the virus. Instead, use wet cleaning methods with heavy disinfectants. And finally,
Always, always wear proper protective gear, like masks and gloves, if you absolutely must clean a rodent-infested space. Limiting contact between us and these animal reservoirs is, without a doubt, our best defense. Lesson summary and practice. We have officially reached the end of our lesson today, and I just want to say, fantastic job. You just successfully tackled some truly complex medical biology, all while leveling up your advanced English vocabulary.
Let's do a quick review. We learned about a zoonotic virus that lives in a rodent reservoir. When its droppings are aerosolized, human inhalation causes a dangerous pathogenesis where endothelial cells leak. This leads to edema, hemorrhagic fevers, and dyspnea, making prophylactic measures absolutely essential. All right, now it's your turn. Can you use some of these 10 new words to describe a virus in your own sentence? Drop your practice sentences in the comments below. I'd absolutely love to read them. If you found this explainer helpful, please hit that like button, share it with a fellow English learner, and subscribe to The English Effect for more contextual vocabulary lessons. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.